Kuki Shinobu, the latest 4-star introduced into Genshin, and also a member of the Artaki crew. And although Itto claims to be the boss, we all know who truly is the one in charge, of cleaning up their mess at least. Today we're going to be taking a look into Shinobu, taking an in-depth look to her talents, artifacts, weapons, and much more, and if she's worth pulling for or not. Hi, my name is Avrice and welcome to my Shinobu guide, and my first guide for a 4-star. Yeah, these guides take a really long time to make, so I usually held off from making guides for 4 stars, except for Shinobu. Why? Cause she's so cool, bro, just look at Okay, sorry about that. I just haven't been excited for a new character in a really long time now. Anyways, if you're looking for something specifically, I'll be leaving the timestamps in the description below. So looking at the base stats for Shinobu, we will be looking at them at level 80, and compared with every other sword user in the game. We're also going to be using her at all her talents at level 8, which is what you're going to be seeing in the background. Brace yourselves real quick because what you're about to see isn't pretty. I triple checked her stats and made sure nothing was off or wrong, but no, it's just how she is. So starting with her HP, it is at 10,891, which is actually low. I know it looks bad right away since a lot of people now know that she's an HP scaled character, so let me clear something up right away. Her HP is low, but her second stat when ascending her upgrades her HP percentage, so this value will be higher eventually, but we're just looking at her bare stats for now. Anyways, her attack is at 188, which is actually the second lowest attack. The only one that shares the same attack value is the Traveler, believe it or not. And finally, her defense is at 665, which is actually the second lowest defense for sword users. Keep in mind that these stats can quickly be increased depending on the artifact she is using or the weapon she has as well. To get Shinobu to Face Ascension 5, the Face Ascension we're going to be working with, and this will also upgrade her HP percentage, you will need 1 Vajrata Amethyst Silver, 9 Fragments, and 9 Chunks. You're also going to need 18 Spectral Husks, which is dropped by specters found mostly in Sarai Island and Watatsumi Island. Along with this, you're going to need 30 Spectral Hearts and 12 Spectral Nucleus. You're also going to need 108 Naku Weeds, which is mostly found in Sarai Island and other areas where electro concentration is high. And finally, you're going to need 26 Runic Fangs, which is obtained by killing the Ruined Serpent. For Face Ascension 6, you're going to need 6 gems, 20 more fangs, 60 more Naku Weeds, and 24 more Nucleus. And now for talent materials. This will only get you 1 talent from level 1 to level 8. So for this, you're going to need 6 Spectral Husks, 22 Spectral Hearts, and 10 Spectral Nucleuses. Elegance books is also required, which can be obtained in the Valley Court on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. You're going to need 3 teachings, 21 guides, and 10 philosophies. And finally, you're going to need 2 Tears of the Calamitous God, which is obtained in a weekly challenge in the Plane of Euthymia. This will cost you 502,500 Mora, and this is to get 2 talents to level 8, and this is for 3 talents to level 8. Shinobu's normal attack, Shinobu's Shadow Sword, has a 4-hit combo. She's actually the first sword user that has a 4-hit combo, breaking the streak of the game having all sword users having a 5-hit combo. Here's her attacks in 4 different angles. And here's in slow motion. Her first hit deals 83.4% damage, which is high. Her second hit deals 76.2% damage, which is average. And her third hit deals 101.4% damage, which is above average. And her final 4th hit deals 130.1% damage, which is high. And for her charged, she will deal 2 strikes, one dealing 95.1% damage, and the other one doing 114.2% damage, which totals at 209.3% damage, which is below average. Her plunge, low, and high is at 109.3, 218.5, and 272.9% damage. This is technically below average damage, but all sword users share the same plunging damage, except Kazuha, who has slightly higher plunge damage. Shinobu's skill, Sanctifying Ring, will do a blow with her Electro Whip, which will then create an Electro Ring around her, which will pulse every 1.5 seconds, dealing electro damage to enemies. This will deal 8 hits in total throughout its duration if you have her between C1 and C0. Activating this comes with a cost, however, which is it will cost Shinobu 30% of her current HP when it is activated. She will then heal the active character for every pulse her ring does, whether it hits enemies or not. If Shinobu has 20% of her HP or less, this skill will not take away any more HP. And at level 8, this will heal 4.8% of her max HP with an additional 541 of flat HP. The duration of this is 12 seconds and the cooldown is at 15 seconds, so it's not that long you have to wait before using it again. And for some reason this skill can knock berries to the ground, as well as fruit from trees, even though it doesn't make the tree drop wood. Her burst, Gyoi Narukami Kariyama, right? Shinobu will stab her sword into the ground, which will then create a small area that will deal continuous electric damage to enemies based off her max HP. If her HP is below 50%, then the duration is extended for a bit longer. This ability will also snapshot, which in case you don't know what that means, basically means buffs applied before casting this skill will last throughout the entire duration. For example, if she activates this on Bennett's Burst, which will boost damage in case you didn't know, she will get that damage bonus even if Bennett's Burst disappears halfway through. But let's say you're in co-op, you're running Shinobu and your teammate is running Bennett, and you activate Shinobu's Burst. But even if your teammate activates his Bennett Burst even half a second later after Shinobu's Burst is active, she will not get that attack bonus. That's basically what snapshotting is, in simple terms. It goes deeper than that. This ability also has an internal cooldown of 2.5 seconds or 3 hits. This is a really complicated thing to get into, which will probably require an entire video to explain, but we're not here for that. Although, if you want me to make a video about that, you can leave a comment, like and subscribe if you actually want to see that. Anyways, in very simple terms, this means not every hit will cause an elemental reaction. Let's say an animal hypostasis, which has animal applied to it permanently. Even if all her burst hits connect, not all of them will create that swirl reaction. At level 8, her initial strike will deal with 5.8% of her max HP and will deal a total of 30.8% damage of her max HP if she's above 50% health, or deal 69.2% of her max HP if she's below 50%. The duration of her burst if her HP is above 50% is 2 seconds, and 3.5 seconds if she's below 50% HP. So if you want to bring out the most out of Shinobu, I highly recommend to keep her below 50% at least. The cooldown is at 15 seconds as well, and her energy cost isn't that bad, requiring 60 energy to charge up. And for her first passive, Breaking Free, unlocked after the first ascension, when Shinobu's HP is not higher than 50%, her healing bonus is increased by 15%. This will help her boost her healing capabilities even further when she's at low HP. Her second passive, Heart's Repose, unlocked after her 4th ascension, Sanctifying Ring, which is her skill, will be boosted based on Shinobu's Elemental Mastery. This will increase her healing amount by 75% of her Elemental Mastery, and her damage dealt will be increased by 25% of Elemental Mastery. Although it does help increase damage and healing, it does make her a bit awkward when it comes to picking out artifacts, because now she scales off 2 things. And her final passive, Protracted Prayers, Shinobu will gain 25% more rewards when dispatched on an Inazuma expedition for 20 hours. For talent priorities, we will be looking at what talents to level up first, or which ones to skip, in order for you to avoid wasting your hard-earned mora and other precious resources. So the first talent you should be leveling up is her skill. This is because this skill is what makes Shinobu shine the most. Made to be an off-field support, whether it be for healing or damage dealing, you will want to use this the most when having Shinobu on your team. It's also helpful that she doesn't have to hit enemies to heal unlike other healers. It is pretty weird that as a healer she loses HP to do healing, but her healing abilities are amplified further the lower HP she has, and even further with the Constellations that will be coming up shortly. And for the second talent you should be leveling up is her burst. Although not the main focus here, but it can do pretty decent damage if you have it at a higher talent level and have her below 50% HP. Pretty helpful to do a little bit more damage with Shinobu, and it doesn't take damage to charge up, even if the cooldown is a bit on the longer side. And for the last talent you should be focusing on, or should I say, not focusing on, is her normal attack. Don't bother with this at all. There is no reason to use her normal attack even if aiming for a main DPS Shinobu. Her attack is pretty low, and her skill, which can last pretty much forever if you have her at a nerd constellation, is simply much more worth using over her normal attack, so it really doesn't make sense to level this up. For Shinobu's first constellation, to Cloister Compassion, her burst area of effect will be increased by 50%. Her size at C0 is okay, but at C1, you will definitely feel a better difference, especially if you have her below 50% of her HP. Her second constellation, to Forsake Fortune, the ring created by her skill will have its duration increased by 3 seconds. This will increase the duration of her skill to a total of 15 seconds, making the total amount of her pulses to 10 as well. Although since now both the cooldown and duration are both 15 seconds, you can actually activate her skill again even when the old ring is still active, right at the very end of her duration. This is actually because it takes a second before the duration actually starts, since Shinobu has to first activate her skill with her whip. So this is very helpful if you want to get a little bit more extra healing and a little bit more damage output. Her third constellation, to Sequester Sorrow, increases her skill level by 3, and the max upgrade is level 15. And her 4th constellation, to sever ceiling, when the normal, charged, or plunging attacks of the character affected by Shinobu's grass ring of sanctification hits opponents, a Thundergrass mark will land on the opponent's position and deal AoE electro damage based off 9.7% of Shinobu's max HP. This effect can only occur once every 5 seconds. This will definitely allow her to be slightly more of a damage support, although I have a little bit of a mixed opinion on this. It does hit harder compared to her burst and skill, but you have to wait 5 seconds for this to activate, with a chance of it not even critting. I know 5 seconds isn't that much to some people, but sometimes you want to get as much damage as you can in the shortest amount of time, because of places like the Spiral Abyss, where your time is very limited. You will want to aim for this constellation if you want to make your Shinobu more than a healer. Her 5th constellation, to seize core disease, increases her burst level by 3, and the max upgrade is level 15, and her final 6th constellation, to ward weakness, when Shinobu takes lethal damage, the instance of damage will not take her down. This effect will automatically trigger once her HP reaches 1, and will trigger once every 60 seconds. When Shinobu's HP drops below 25%, she will gain 150 elemental mastery for 15 seconds. This effect can only trigger once every 60 seconds. This is a very cool C6, I'm not gonna lie. Not only does she get a big elemental mastery increase, which will help damage, but she also will get a second chance at life, since no matter how hard she is hit, she will eat that up and remain at 1 HP. This is definitely helpful since her kit is basically asking her to be near death, so obviously if you're at low HP, you can die very easily, but this C6 gives you a second chance at life. This is the constellation you want to get if you truly want to get the most out of Shinobu, although the same can be applied to pretty much everyone. For Shinobu's weaponry, we'll be going over the top 3 5-star weapons best suited for her, as well as the top 3 4-star weapons in case you don't have any of the 5 stars. So starting off with one of the best picks you can have on her is the Freedom Sword. Second set is Elemental Mastery, and this will increase damage by 10% at R1. After creating elemental reactions, you gain a special stack with a max of 2 stacks, which would then increase your basic attack by 16% at R1 and attack by 20% at R1 as well for 20 seconds. I'll admit that having a 5-star weapon on her is nice, but she won't be able to fully use the weapon's passive talents properly, so if you have somebody else that could use it, go with them instead. These are just recommendations if you have a spare 5-star sword laying around. I say this because even if it does increase her attack by a good portion, she's still pretty weak compared to other sword users. Anyways, for the second pick we have is the Skyward Blade. Second set is Energy Recharge, and this will increase crit rate by 4% at R1. Once you activate your burst, movement and attack speed is increased by 10%. Your normal and charge attacks will also increase by an additional 20% at R1 of your attack. This effect lasts for 12 seconds. Although the crit rate increase isn't that much, this can definitely help into bringing Shinobu's burst much more quicker. And for the final 5-star pick we have is the Primordial Jade Cutter. Second set is crit rate, and this will increase her HP by 20% at R1. This will also increase attack by 1.2% of her max HP at R1 as well. This is definitely one of the better options since she scales off HP, and crit rate will definitely be much more helpful since she doesn't upgrade her own crit rate or crit damage through ascending. And now on to the 4 stars. So coming in first is the Iron String. Second set is Elemental Mastery, and this will increase elemental damage by 6% at R1 for 6 seconds with a max of 2 stacks. This can only occur once every second, but this is definitely one of the best choices you can have on Shinobu for a 4-star, because the elemental damage increase as well as EM increase will definitely help out a lot when using her as support. This is also a free to play friendly option since you can craft this weapon instead of pulling for it. And for the second 4-star we got is the Favonius Sword. Second set is Energy Recharge, and this will make it so crits have a 60% chance at R1 to generate elemental particles. This can happen once every 12 seconds at R1. A good choice if you want to charge up Shinobu's burst much more quicker to use it sooner. Not really recommended for damage dealing, this definitely leans more into a support Shinobu. And for the final 4-star choice we got is the Sacrificial Sword. Second set is Energy Recharge, and this will have a 40% chance at R1 to reset your skill cooldown instantly when using her skill. It can only happen once every 30 seconds. If you didn't want to pull a lot in this banner and just aim for a C0 Shinobu, then you can use this weapon to kinda cheat and have a slightly altered version of her C1, allowing her to have an almost infinite time active in higher refinements. For artifacts, we'll be discussing the best sets, main stats, as well as substats, all changing depending on how you want to build Shinobu, and there's quite a few ways you can build her. So starting off with the sets, one of the best sets you can put on Shinobu is a 4-piece Tenacity of the Millilith. Its 2-piece increases HP by 20%, and the 4-piece set will increase attack of all party members by 20% if her skill hits enemies. It also increases shield strength, but we're not worried about that, since she doesn't have a shield. Although she can't take full advantage of the 4-piece, that increase to her HP and attack boost to your teammates will show that it's worth going for. Another set you want to look for if you really don't care about her damage and just want to use her as a dedicated healer, then a 2-piece Maiden Beloved and a 2-piece Ocean Hue Clam can work. Both of these 2-piece will increase healing bonus by 15%, and I'll admit, it's not really a popular choice, but it's something you want to look after if you just want healing only, since a lot of people know by now that Shinobu really isn't known for her damage. Another set that can work with Shinobu pretty well is a 2-piece Tenacity and a 2-piece Wanderer's Trope, which increases Elemental Mastery by 80. Not only will she increase her HP, which will boost damage and healing, but Elemental Mastery will do this as well. Although that EM boost can help into increasing her damage and healing, if you really want to take full advantage of this, then you will want a C6 Shinobu. But if you don't have C6, then a 2-piece Tenacity and a 2-piece Emblem of Severed Fate can work, with the 2-piece increasing energy recharge by 20%. Since her burst is what scales off HP the most, it's best to have it ready sooner. And now on for the main stats. If you want a healer Shinobu, then you will want all main stats to be HP percent. It's pretty straightforward, and this will also increase her damage dealt too by a bit. But if you want to focus a little bit less on healing and more on damage, then a triple Elemental Mastery can work as well. This will definitely shine the most if you have Shinobu at C6. I'm not saying you need a C6 in order for this to shine, I'm just saying it can work much better if you have her at C6. Although if you want something a little bit more balanced, then you can pick out any of these main stats on your screen over here and pick out one each without repeating it. I figured it would have been much quicker if I just showed it to you instead of pretty much saying every single main stat out loud. Although I did include Electro damage bonus, I recommend to go for it if you're really struggling with her damage and have at least HP or EM as a substat. Speaking about substats, HP percentage and Elemental Mastery are pretty much the top picks for Shinobu. This is because both of these stats can help her with her healing as well as damage dealing. And for the third choice we got is Energy Recharge. Although her skill doesn't take that much to charge up, it won't hurt to get it faster. And finally, Crit Rate or Crit Damage. Since the substat cannot be the same as the main stat, there should be a chance for you to fit two of the previously mentioned substats along with Crit Rate and Crit Damage. A little bit more necessary too, since she doesn't upgrade either Crit Rate or Crit Damage when ascending her. For team comps, we'll be discussing the best handful of teammates involving Shinobu as support. I leave up a chart instead of just recommending one team, just in case you don't have some of the characters or if you simply don't like playing them. So keeping Shinobu as support in mind, first we'll discuss the best main DPS that can really take advantage of Shinobu's skill. First one being Xiao. His burst may deal a lot of damage, but he loses HP every second it's active, and with no way to heal himself, Shinobu can do this for him. You can also create elemental reactions if you time her pulses right with his plunges. Ayato can also be a good main DPS since he can hit quite fast, but a main problem with him is that you have to be still if you want to land every single hit of his skill, being a big target to enemies if they surround you. Shinobu can help Ayato keep enemies back without having to move as much, and heal him as well if he does get hit. I also want to say Hu Tao, but she's a little bit more situational, so you can decide if you want to use her or not. This is because she needs to be lower than 50% of HP to deal the most damage. Not only that, she can also heal herself with her burst. I only recommend to use Shinobu with Hu Tao if Hu Tao is really close to death and her burst is not ready, or if you miss it, or if it simply doesn't heal enough. Ayaka can also take advantage of Shinobu's pulses and create a lot of superconduct reactions, decreasing a lot of enemies' physical resistance. And speaking of decreasing enemies' physical resistance, this brings us to our sub DPS category. So for the first pick we have is Rosaria. You don't need Ayaka for this, but once you activate Superconduct with Rosaria and have a physical build on her, this can definitely help to improve her damage. Coming in second is Xingqiu, who can deal great off-field damage with his burst, causing a lot of electrocharge reactions. Yelan can do this too, and even better than Xingqiu if I'm being honest. And finally, we have his Yoimiya. If you don't use her charge attacks at all, and just use her for her infused normal attacks, then you can take advantage of Shinobu's pulse attacks, creating overloaded reactions. Next up we have is Electro teammates. They're not limited to one role and can either be a support or a sub DPS. They can also help with Elemental Resonance, which decreases Hydra applied to you for 40% less time. Superconduct, Overloaded, and Electrocharge have a 100% chance to generate an Electro Elemental Particle with a cooldown of 5 seconds. So you can pretty much put together any of your Electro teammates, and then you have an Electro battery, as long as you have a Hydro or Pyro teammate. So coming in first is Fischl, who can work both as a sub DPS or a support, creating an extra Electro attack off field. The Raiden Shogun can also work as a sub DPS, support, battery, or even main DPS. She can deal great damage and have an additional off-field Electro attack just like Shinobu. Beidou can work too, she's a pretty solid sub DPS. And finally, we have his Keqing. Not really a recommended character for DPS, but pretty solid for a sub DPS and can be used as a battery for Shinobu, or vice versa. And for the final category, we have his support. Coming in first is Bennett. who can be used to heal everyone as well as boost damage for everyone else as well. Pretty helpful for Shinobu, since as we've seen before, she doesn't hit quite hard. Sucrose can also be a good support to create elemental reactions and boost elemental damage as well. Kazuha can do this as well, but Sucrose will always be there if you don't have him. And finally, we have his Sarah. A little less popular of a choice, but she can help Shinobu boost her own damage if you're truly struggling with her damage. So with this list, you can pick out any of these characters on this list and mix and match them with each other alongside Shinobu, and they'll work out pretty great. For example, main DPS Xiao, Shinobu support, Rosario sub DPS, and Fisher battery, or it can be a main DPS Ayato with Shinobu as support, Raiden as sub DPS, alongside with Bennett. It's all pretty much designed to work great with each other. I'ma be honest, Shinobu is someone that I've actually been excited for in a really long time. Dope design, great personality, interesting kit, but damn. It's like Hoyoverse wanted to test us and see if we would so gobble up a bad unit. And they were right. We eating good. Shinobu Nation rise up. Okay. In all seriousness, I'll be the first to say, and I truly believe it, not every character needs to do 1 million damage a hit per normal attack just to be good. Because it worries me that a lot of people think that way. Like bro, there's other roles other than a main DPS. And besides, if main DPS Barbara is a thing, I'm pretty sure there's already some video out there where somebody's clearing a boss with their Shinobu under 3 seconds. But I'll also admit that she really isn't that great of a character. You figure since she's scaled off HP, her HP would have been a little bit higher. I know she upgrades HP when ascending her, but it would have been nicer to have a little bit more HP to start with, since she depends on it a lot. Her attack and defense is also pretty disappointing too. I don't see myself using her normal attacks unironically, only using it because her attack animations are cool. And also the fact that she scales off 2 things is also pretty disappointing. I wasn't a fan when Miko did this. I am a Miko fan, but not a fan on how she scaled off Elemental Mastery. Although her scaling didn't make that much of a difference, but we see EM screaming pick me in Shinobu's kit. And you even see her Constellations pressuring you to pick EM. But I do like her off-field support. I like how it follows you around, and it does damage based off a timer, and not if you hit enemies or not. It's really helpful for people like Xiao, since really popular support units like Xingqiu or Yelan don't really support him in his plunging attacks. But Shinobu doesn't care, she just does it. And this is a little nitpicky, not game breaking, but it's a little bit weird that a healer needs to be near death for her to do her job. Shouldn't it be the opposite? I can see some people not reading up on her skills and simply heal Shinobu the second after her skill is active, thinking that she needs to be at full HP, like a normal healer. I was like that before I actually read up on her skills. So other than that, let's ask the sacred question, which is, should you pull for her? Honestly, and I'm seeing it as a huge Shinobu fan. Like I said, I haven't been stoked for a new character in the longest time, but honestly, I can say you can skip her. She is a good healer, and she can be a good off-field support character. But I don't see many people needing her if they need a support or a healer. There's already more popular and better supports, I'll admit that. And for healing, everybody has Barbara, and Barbara can do this better. Although she needs to hit enemies, she can heal everyone in your party. Shinobu can't do this, which is something I almost forgot to mention. She only heals the active character, which is weird. Sometimes it is risky for my characters to come on the field because their HP is too low, but Shinobu won't be able to heal them. They need to be on the field. So yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I like Shinobu a lot. Don't get me wrong, she does healing pretty good, and her off-field support is pretty good as well. But there's also better supports, and this is a double scale as well, which is HP and Elemental Mastery. And her low attack and defense is pretty much discouraging you from using her as an on-field DPS of some sort. Anyways, thank you so much for watching the whole way through. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Leave a like and subscribe if you like what you saw. It will really help me out to reach out more people, and these guides do take a fat minute to make, so I'll really appreciate it. Anyways, if you want to see more guides like this, here's a full playlist right here, along with other Genshin related content, and more will come. Anyways, thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.